Yeah, so we did a few simple things here. So let me just kind of show you the gist of it. So basically, we have like a little reactive scene here. We have our character kind of in his like ready animation, and he's like our goalie in this instance. And then what we have here is the ball. If the ball hits him, turns into a ragdoll. If the ball goes through the goal, it plays a sound effect, and it increases the score. So we did basically like kind of just explaining how some collision events can run, and on this guy what we did was, so if you don't hit him, if the ball just goes in the goal, he switches to this other animation. So basically we kind of explained how to do how to switch animation states. So where can I start? So let's just start with just some of this physics stuff. So one of the main things we covered is just that the kinematic thing that I just explained to you. So if this ball isn't kinematic, then it'll react to physics. See, it's like if I try to move it around, it's affected by gravity. It's affected by a bunch of other things. And in this instance, I have this cube with the spring joint attached to it, so it's kind of dragging it along. And a spring joint is just a component called spring joint, and it just needs a connected body, which is a rigid body. So if the sphere has a rigid body, you just drag that in there, and then they become connected like that. And then you can set like the dampening and whatever stuff on it. It's very simple. So it's just a component. So if this wasn't here, you would just add component, or you can go up here, component, physics, and then there's a bunch here. So there's hinge joint and stuff. Hinge joint is used more for like doors and stuff. So it's like you kind of make the hinge. You say where the hinge starts and the amount of degrees that the hinge rotates, and then that becomes literally like a door, kind of like on a hinge. You just kind of push it, and the door kind of smacks open, and then it kind of comes back or something like that. So that's
So show me the spring joint.
So let's do a spring joint, right? So you can put the spring joint on anything, basically. It's just like So let's say I put spring joint, and it's just gonna look like that. And it expects a connected body. So what's connected to it? And it has to be a rigid body. See, it's a non-rigid body. So since our sphere has a rigid body, I just drag the sphere in there, and that's it. And then now those become like this. They become like connected.
Awesome.
We didn't really cover a hinge joint, but it's basically it's very similar, just physics hinge joint. It expects a connected body, and then it has a connected anchor. Now, right now the anchor, I believe, is this. You just see like a little arrow there. It's very tiny. If I make the gizmos bigger, no, that doesn't work. But basically, I believe that, let me see I haven't used hinge joint in a while, but yeah, it kind of, see, it can only go like this. You see what I mean? So since the arrow, you see how the arrow it was facing that way, so that means the hinge is expecting to go like this. So that's one way to make like just some more of the physics stuff. So there's a bunch of those in there. They're pretty straightforward how they work.
With spring joint, can you control the tension and the?
Yeah, it has dampening. It has a bunch of other things there. You just kind of play with it. There's no like best way to do it. It depends on the mass of your objects, the size. So you can tweak it. You can almost make it like a rope. There's no real rope thing, I think. So yeah, spring joint would be as close to a rope as you could get, maybe, for example.
And what's a character joint?
Character joint is what's actually used in the character when you see him go limp. So I'll explain that in a second, what we did. But I'm just gonna try to keep this brief. So yeah, that, and then the other thing. So you notice when we had the gravity on, it's pretty hard to control the object, because like let's say if I would just want to push forward, it all of a sudden the sphere itself is also they're both physics.
Yeah.
So even if I give it some control, at some point when it collides, it will just react to physics as it should.
Okay.
When you make it kinematic, it becomes fully reactive to the user, to the scripts, to the world, but not to physics itself. But other things react to it as physics. So that's making something kinematic is ideal for when you want full control over that object. Like when you had your zombie, you want full control. You don't want that zombie to be pushed aside,
Right.
but you want the zombie to push aside other things.
Yeah.
So that's when you make something kinematic.
Okay.
So see, now I have full control over it. It doesn't
Gotcha.
that. And then the other thing, so what we did was, and I'll explain right now with this character, right? So what we actually have here is we actually have two versions of this character. One version is a ragdoll, and one version is a regular character version that just animates.
Okay.
So if I press play, you'll see how one just goes limp,
Mm-hmm.
and it has all these colliders, and it's using those character joints. Now, we didn't do each joint as a character joint and connect them. There's actually a built-in Unity thing to make a character into a ragdoll.
Okay.
And I'll show you how to do that real quick. So, yeah, let me just put these back how they were.
And it's only playing one character at a time?
And then when a
So-
collision happens, so we have a little collider on here and a script on the character.
Okay.
So when it detects that the ball hit this character,
Mhm.
it basically switches them.
Okay.
That's all that happens, and then then it looks like it goes limp, and it all happens instantaneously, so you don't even notice the switch. And that's why it looks so seamless. It looks like he just falls over.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you see what happens up there, you see how one just gets switched and the other one gets turned on. See?
Let me see.
See the ragdoll right there is turned off. You see how that one's turned off and the other one isn't?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then when I go here, if I just move it in, you see how, oops, I didn't hit him. If you just go here and just push him in, see how I just switched it?
Uh-huh.
So that's all we're doing in code, literally. We're just turning one object off and turning another one on. One has the physics we want, the other one doesn't.
Okay.
So that's kind of the effect that you achieve when you do that.
Cool.
But yeah, so let me explain. So real quick, like say you wanted to make a character into a ragdoll, all you have to do, so I'm just going to copy this guy over here. Yeah, so all you have to do is you go up here in Game Object, 3D Object, Ragdoll. It says it right there.
Mhm.
And it's going to give you this menu. Now what you do is you open your character to get to his bones. And what these are is basically like the bone slots for each body part, basically.
Okay.
So where it says pelvis, now sometimes it depends on your 3D art, or your 3D artist can name things differently.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to assume what things are. So in this instance, I'm assuming hips is pelvis.
Okay.
And then you have left hips. In this instance would be probably left up leg. And left knee is probably left leg. And then you open left leg, and then left foot is left foot.
Okay.
And then you kind of do that for all of it. So right hips would be right up leg, right leg would be right knee, and then right foot is right there.
Okay.
And then you have left arm, so you open the spine, and you get to left shoulder. Now the left shoulder, remember how I showed you, if you actually just grab one of these body parts, you can actually, rotate just by that body part.
Yeah.
So that's what basically is happening here. I'm basically pulling each body part in its appropriate slot, and then Unity will automatically calculate and put a mass and collider on each body part and a hinge and a character joint, and that's why it has that kind of.
Flops over.
Yeah, exactly. So left arm, I wouldn't recommend you do left shoulder straight up on here because that's actually more like the clavicle.
Okay.
So I would kind of go into left arm here. But again, you can just kind of open it and see, okay, that's left hand. So here you want left arm, left elbow. So I'm just going to give it left arm, left forearm. And then here he wants right arm, right elbow. And again, even if you put right shoulder instead of right arm, it would still work.
Okay.
It's up to you. You can kind of see how the ragdoll flops over and see if that works for you or not.
Just seeing what looks natural.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Every 3D artist and stuff does things differently. So in Unity, you have to kind of do some trial and error and just see what visually looks good for you.
Okay.
And there's never like one right way to do it. So yeah, and right forearm, and then middle spine would be something like spine 2, I think.
Okay.
So I put spine 2 there, and then the head is here in the neck after the spine, and then head right there. And then once you have all that, you can tell the total mass, and then you just do create, and then boom, it created it. So now this character has the ragdoll effect. So if you just press play, he'll just, oh, oops. The reason why I did that is because I have a box collider on the top and this rigid body, because we used them as a goalie earlier. So if I just...
So they can't have those in the rocket, right?
Yeah, oh, and he has an animator. Yeah, so if he has an animator, always supersedes physics.
Okay.
So see, he's animated right now, and if I just turn off the animator, he falls over.
Gotcha.
See that? Yeah, that's how you make a character into a ragdoll.
Okay.
So that's just like some extra like physics stuff that Unity can do.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna delete this guy. So we basically did that. So we had like a regular version and a ragdoll version of the character. We saved them both as separate prefabs.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, so then what we did was the regular version of the character, we went into its animation, and we went on Mixamo, and we got an animation that kind of looks like he's like a goalie,
Yeah.
So we put that as the default animation, and we had it loop. And I'll get to the animation switch in a second. But what happens is, so he's basically just in his ready mode, and on him we have a collider and a rigid body. Now, in here, in the script that we wrote for him, the script is very simple.
And
So
you wrote that from scratch, or was that
yep,
one that you imported?
wrote it from scratch. Yeah. So you'll have it in there.
The video.
So yeah, the script is very simple. So yeah, all we do is we did a public game object, my ragdoll, and then we were able to drag our disabled game object, the ragdoll, in here. So you see it's linked. So if you click this, you see how you have this is linked to that up there.
Okay.
So that's that link, and that's my ragdoll in our script.
All right. Public game object rag. Oh, got it. All right.
And then we pulled it in there. Now we got that accessed.
So
and then
it's kind of like it's like a prefab, that whole ragdoll.
yeah, it's
You can
not
assign that to.
kind of, yeah. So it's in the scene. So just I don't know if we did this during the first weekend, but we did some things where we were linking like the object as a public in here, and then you're able to just kind of drag it in from the Unity view.
Okay.
But yeah, and then what we introduced was this new type of void, which is on collision enter. So that it's not on update or on start. It just runs when a collision happens.
Okay.
And it's written like this: collision other object, and you'll see like more in detail, like if you watch the video. But basically, what happens is the other object is the object that basically hit us.
Okay.
This ragdoll, and then what we're checking is if this other object's game object's tag is equal to ball, then we're doing my ragdoll set active true, game object set active to false. So we're setting ourselves to false, and we're setting the ragdoll to true. Basically, just disabling ourselves and enabling the ragdoll if the condition is met. Now
Okay.
the
So
tag.
this script that's on the goalie.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the script is always running in update, so it sees when the ball collides with it. If it does, then it switches to the other object.
Yep.
Got it.
Exactly. And the other thing that we introduced too was the concept of tags. So what we first did was we just checked if the name of the game object was sphere or ball, and then it also runs true. But say you didn't want that, maybe you just wanted the cube to also affect it, or something like along those lines. Oh wait, I think I need to plug in my computer. Could you plug me in the wall? Alright, so so a tag is a special type of Unity thing that basically you can tag multiple objects as something like a player or destructible or whatever you want to.
Yeah.
It's just a little name tag.
So it doesn't need to be one object that causes the animation.
It could be any object that's tagged as such, for example.
Awesome.
And you check that in script if the tag matches, whatever. So you can create new tags just by clicking add tag.
Okay.
And then in there you can add a tag, and it's just like the name of the tag.
Yeah.
And then you can check for that tag in your script, basically.
Right. Can you show me in the script where it checks for that?
Yeah, so just right here, if other object, game object is equal to tag.
Ball.
Yep. And you'll see it like when you start typing, right there, you can do .name or .tag
Gotcha.
of the game object. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then the other thing we did, so that's all colliders right now. So we had on collision enter. The other thing you have is triggers. So trigger, it's actually invisible. You don't see it here, but it's actually the net is a trigger. Now this is just a regular box. I just made a cube, and I sized it to where I want my goal area to be, basically.
Okay.
And then I just disabled the mesh renderer just so you don't see it.
Yep.
But it still has the box collider, and it's the exact size that I want it to be for the net per se, right?
So you created a cube, stretched it out, put a box collider on it,
And just disabled the mesh renderer so you don't see it. I put an audio source on it. We just got a little audio that does the cheering.
Awesome.
And the audio source doesn't play on start. So that's the important part, where we want it to only play on a certain condition is met, which is the ball entering its area. Now the important thing about this is this box collider right here is a trigger. It's not just a collider. If it's a collider, it actually collides. It will bounce off it.
Okay.
But a trigger is an area that it's something can go through it, but it fires a trigger event when something goes in it, like what we want here, for example. We don't want the ball to bounce off the net that's not visible. We want it to go through it, but then leave us with an event that will fire off the sound, basically.
Gotcha. So if you, it would need a rigid body for it to bounce off, right? Or a collider.
No, it would need a collider. It has a collider, but the collider would need to not be a trigger.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Got it. I'm with you.
So yeah, and then the last thing. So then we made a script on that net that checks a bunch of things, and it does a bunch of things. So what the script here does, so we have a few things. We have a little score int,
Yep.
and I'll explain. We'll get to the text in a sec. But basically, what I explained was the concept of components and how one object can get another object's component, or how a script can get another script component, etc. So in Unity, everything that you see over here on the right, like audio source, that's a component.
Right.
So when we want to get the audio source to play that sound, what we have to do here is we have to do game object, get component, and you write it like this, audio source, dot play.
Okay.
So play is a function of audio source, for example. And that's happening if the other object, game object, dot tag is equal to ball.
Okay.
On trigger enter, not on collision enter.
Got
So it's
it.
basically the same thing as what we did before, where the character gets switched out, but in this instance, on trigger enter, if the tag is ball, we're getting the component audio source that's on us, on the net, and we're playing it.
Okay.
The
script is on
the net.
it. Okay.
Yep. So we're incrementing the score by 1, which you can do score plus plus.
Okay.
Or score equals to score plus 1. Score plus plus is just like a C way of just means just increment by 1.
Yeah.
When you just do plus plus. That's why it's called C++. Because when they invented C++ over C, C++ had these like useful features like just typing plus plus instead of having to say x is equal to x plus 1.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We did that last. We saw those two.
I think so. Yeah.
I forget.
In the first weekend, yeah, we did the plus plus thing. But I'm just saying it.
Okay.
So then the other thing that we did too was, so when you do public up here, you can, it's not just you do public, int, float, game object. You can also do a public component like animator, like text mesh.
Okay.
So if you click on like the character, you see the character has an animator.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to modify it to animation, we have like to play another animation, we have to get the animator component of that character. So on the net, once we have like a public animator, my character there on the net, basically here, this would be empty. Right here, my character.
Yeah.
So all we do is we drag the character that we want its animation there, just in there, and then the animator gets pulled in there right away. So if a game object has a certain component that you want to access, and the component's waiting there empty, you just drag that game object, and it'll find automatically the component on that game object that you want there, basically. So yeah, and then what happens is, once we have that animator, and now the animator is called my character, we named it that.
Yeah.
Then over here, we can, in my character, we set a boolean cheer equals to true. Now, in animator, over here, there's these things called parameters in this right here. So you can add another parameter here, and the parameters can be float, integer, bool. So what happens is, when this gets checked on, some condition is met. So that's where this second arrow comes in. So we pulled in another animation here, and you can do, you can pull in as many animations as you want like this.
Yeah.
But you need to connect them in a certain way. So, and you probably connected them, and it just at the end of the animation, it would play the next one, right?
Yeah.
Well, in this instance, this event is not going to happen unless this condition is met. So you can set multiple conditions here.
Okay.
To be met, basically.
Cool.
How do I remove this now? Okay. But yeah, so in this instance, we named our condition cheer, and if that's true, then play this cheering animation.
Okay. And how does it become true?
So in our script, so where we pulled our animator,
Yeah.
all we're doing is my character dot set boolean
Got it.
cheer to true, and then it becomes true, and that all happens on when it enters the trigger.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and then the last thing is the text mesh. So you can create these types of 3D texts just by going into game object, 3D object, and there's 3D text right there. So when you click that, and it gives you a text like that.
All right.
And you'll notice that the text has a text mesh component.
Yeah.
Same thing. So you can access that component from a script just by making like a public text mesh container, my text, and then you can just drag that in over here where your net is, and it's expecting this component. Oh yeah, it's over there. So it's expecting that component right there. You just drag that in.
Okay.
And now since I dragged it into the other one, it won't increment my 0. It'll actually increment that hello world. See?
Oh, okay.
So it's basically the connection that you're making between objects.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll go more into it.
Yeah, I think I got the basics.
Yeah.
Once I do the video.
But again, like we're not gonna do that much scripting today. We're gonna kind of keep it. We're gonna go back to graphical again. We're gonna go back to kind of arranging things and that kind of conceptual stuff.
Cool.
And then for next week, we're gonna delve again back into the scripting and getting like serious with the stuff.
Great.
But yeah, so today, it's just gonna be kind of like fun stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to just kind of give you like a little refresher on this. Oh great, that was like 45 minutes. Then we build where's my text? Score? Yeah. Put it back. Yeah, one way if you want to like reach a component that's kind of down here, you can kind of pull it to the edge of the screen here, and it will kind of like pull it down like that. Like you already have something dragged, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can just kind of like hover around the border there, and it will kind of like
Scroll down.
ever so slowly.
Yeah.
But it works. Yeah. So, Judah, do you have this project open?
The one.
So just the project that we've been working in so far. So we're just gonna make a new scene now, and so we're just gonna start with something blank. Now, what I want you all to kind of think about is, so we're gonna be kind of creating our little game project slash storytelling slash whatever kind of VR environment that we want to decide. So obviously, whenever you're starting a project, you kind of have to decide what look you're gonna go for, what the environment is gonna be. In your instance, when you did like the thriller, you kind of needed a city with some pavement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's certain ways, like for example, for something like a music video, it's a very controlled environment. So you're usually probably going to be looking at things from only a certain angle, and you have a little bit more freedom on how you kind of arrange your scene, because it's only going to be looked at from certain angles and stuff.
Yeah,
but
if you go to the borders of the streets in mind,
yeah,
you'll see there's like space between.
Exactly, but the player will never see that, so he doesn't even need to know that.
Yeah.
But in our instance, what we're going to be creating today is we're going to be creating a level for like a game. So when you're doing level design, you have to kind of like make it, viewable from multiple angles and kind of cover up all the loose ends. And then there's ways to, beautify your scenes and to make them look a little bit better. So let's just start like from the asset store here. So I'm just gonna open window, asset store, and then have just a new scene open. It should just be a blank scene. So we're gonna go to 3D models, environments. I haven't decided on an environment yet, so we're gonna just kind of do it together. And just gonna click, in where's 3D models, environments, and I'm gonna do free only. Oh, also, just a sec.